In the opening scene, it is nighttime, and there's a house shown, with heavy rain pouring outside. Inside the house, a young man named Michael, who is the hero of the story, is lying on a bed. When he gets up and walks, he sees a stranger in a hoodie inside the house. The stranger's face is not visible, appearing just as a dark figure. Suddenly, there's a cut to the hero lying on the floor. It was all a dream that Michael had. Michael has just moved into this house. Dreaming of a faceless stranger entering the house, the hero wakes up in fear. He realizes that he is not on the bed but lying on the floor in his underwear. As he wonders when he got out of bed, someone knocks on the door. Thinking, someone's here, Michael puts on his clothes and opens the door. A middle-aged man named Joe, who lives 2 houses away, introduces himself as the neighbor. Since Michael has just moved in, the neighbor came to introduce himself. He mentions that he used to be friendly with the lady who previously rented the house. The hero hasn't unpacked his things yet. This house was maintained by Michael's parents and rented out. The previous tenant left, and Michael, wanting to try a new job, decided to live alone and moved here. While talking to the neighbor, Michael notices that the back door is unlocked. The neighbor, after asking about Michael, invites him to dinner at his house. Michael quickly goes to the back door, checks that the lock is broken, and closes the door. In the next scene, the hero takes a bath and eats, then picks up a cutter to unpack his things. But feeling unmotivated to unpack, he leaves the things as they are. In the evening, he goes to the neighbor's house for dinner, where the neighbor and his wife are present. The 3 of them have dinner together. Since Michael has just moved in, the neighbor gives him some tips. The lady who previously rented Michael's house was named Nancy. She was a nice person but suddenly stopped talking to them and left the house. The neighbor mentions that there had been 2 thefts in the area and advises Michael to have a security system in the house. Hearing about the thefts, Michael feels a bit scared. He asks when and how the thefts occurred. The neighbor says it happened 2 to 3 years ago, and there were no significant incidents. After dinner, Michael says bye and returns home. He locks the door and checks if it's properly locked. He also checks the back door and goes to sleep. Suddenly, he wakes up to a sound like a door being opened and closed. Scared, Michael keeps his eyes closed. In the morning, he finds the front door unlocked. He sees that someone used a cutter to open the boxes with his things. He takes the cutter and puts it in a drawer. Next, the neighbor comes over, giving Michael a ticket as the patrol police find him for parking his car on the road at night. The neighbor informs Michael that it is not allowed to park cars on the road at night in this area. Noticing Michael looking dull, the neighbor asks what happened. Michael says he didn't sleep well. The neighbor invites Michael inside and informs him about someone breaking into the house last night. Michael didn't see anyone but heard sounds of the door opening and closing. He felt like someone came and left. Though nothing was stolen, Michael noticed the back door was open. This makes Michael feel that someone has been breaking into the house for the past 2 days. Hearing this, the neighbor gives some ideas. First, he suggests calling a locksmith to change all the locks in the house. Then, he advises installing a security system. He also suggests a sleep app that monitors how long and how well one sleeps. The neighbor suggests the app because Michael looked like he hadn't slept well in the morning. Though someone had been breaking into the house for the past 2 days, nothing was stolen. The neighbor thinks that Michael might have walked in his sleep and opened the doors, or maybe it was a vivid dream. Michael disagrees and says it was real. The neighbor insists on changing the locks and installing a security system before leaving. In the next scene, the hero searches online for home security options and downloads a sleep monitoring app. He receives a video call from his sister, who lives 2 streets away in the same area. His sister inquires about his move and he explains that he hasn't unpacked yet. She offers help if needed. The hero tells his sister about meeting the neighbor, having dinner at his house, and getting fined for parking his car on the road at night. She ends the call by saying she will visit him one day. The hero wonders whether he should also buy a gun for safety, in addition to the security camera. That night, he sets up the sleep monitoring app and goes to sleep. In the middle of the night, he feels like someone is watching him, but he dismisses it as a dream. The next morning, he checks the sleep monitoring app, which shows disturbed sleep, indicating he didn't get deep sleep but only slept lightly. The app also records noises from the room. He listens to the audio and hears himself breathing heavily in his sleep at around 2:30 a.m. He then hears the sound of footsteps at 3:50 a.m. Determined to not let this continue, he quickly orders security cameras and barricades for the doors to be delivered that day. He also has a locksmith change all the locks in the house. The locksmith tells him there were no signs of a break-in. The hero wonders if the previous tenant had an extra key that fell into someone else's hands. The neighbor arrives, and the hero tells him about someone coming into the house again last night. The neighbor is shocked and asks about the sleep monitoring app and lock changes. He suggests the hero should talk to the previous tenant for more clarity. The hero asks the neighbor for Nancy's contact number, but the neighbor feels uncomfortable giving it out and instead provides her email address. The hero doesn't want to involve his parents or the police and tells the neighbor he plans to buy a gun for safety. The neighbor advises against it. In the next scene, the hero emails Nancy, explaining that it feels like someone is in the house at night and provides his contact number. He checks her social media profile and finds that the neighbor is on her friend list. Shortly, he receives a call from Nancy, who is shocked to learn he is living in that house. She says there's an evil presence in the house, which she herself felt. Although the hero doesn't believe in such things, Nancy insists there is something there and advises him to leave the house immediately. The hero asks if she gave a key to someone else, but before she can answer, someone knocks on the door, so he ends the call. When he opens the door, he finds the security cameras he ordered. He installs one camera at the front door, one at the back door, and one facing the bed. Feeling relieved, he falls asleep on the sofa. After a while, he wakes up feeling very cold and sees the dark figure in a hoodie knocking on the door. The figure asks to be let in, saying it's cold outside. The hero responds that it's even colder inside, causing the figure to become agitated and bang on the door strongly. Soon, figures in hoodies start banging on the front door, back door, and windows. The hero lies on the floor, covering his ears, and eventually falls asleep. The next morning, he wakes up, thinking it was a bad dream, and checks his phone. He sees a message from his neighbor about a power cut last night, asking if the power has been restored. The hero checks the camera footage and finds that there was indeed a power cut during the night. The footage before the power cut shows multiple figures knocking on the door in his dream. The hero, half asleep, shouts for them to stay out, which is recorded. He also notices a sudden light near the bathroom that he cannot explain. There are footprints near the front door, and the lock is left open. Without knowing what really happened during the power cut, the hero feels more scared and anxious. He goes to a gun store to buy a handgun for self-defense. The store in charge gives him firing practice and does a background check before giving him the gun. When the hero returns home, he finds another parcel, containing the barricades he ordered. One of the cameras fixed outside the front door is found on the ground. He takes the parcel and the camera inside. Unable to find the cutter in the drawer, he opens the parcel using his car key and fixes the barricade on the front door. He repositions the camera. He loads bullets into the gun, places it on the bed, and goes to sleep, determined to confront anyone who comes that night. At 3:13 a.m., he receives a notification from the camera app about motion detected in the room. He sees that he himself is sleepwalking, opening the fridge door, and then walking to the front door to remove the barricade and go outside. He tries to open the car door, then returns inside without properly locking the door. He finally understands why his sleep is disturbed and how the doors get unlocked. Suddenly, he hears a noise, grabs the gun from the bed, and finds the camera facing the bed on the ground. While looking at it, the front door barricade falls to the floor. Thinking someone has entered, he fires the gun twice. He then goes outside to search for intruders but finds no one. The neighbor rushes over, having heard the gunshot, and asks what happened. The hero says someone came again and asks for help. The neighbor searches all the rooms, closing the fridge door that was left open. The neighbor sees the broken camera and mentions the power cut, but the hero cannot recall everything clearly. The neighbor advises the hero to put the gun away, and he does so. Just then, a police car arrives. The neighbor must have informed the police after hearing the gunshot. The hero is anxious about the police involvement and asks the neighbor to handle it. The neighbor talks to the police privately, and they leave. The neighbor advises the hero not to use the gun unnecessarily. The hero asks if the neighbor believes him, but the neighbor is unsure what to say. He wants to help the hero but cannot believe him without evidence. He suggests getting sleeping pills if needed, but the hero, frustrated, tells the neighbor to leave. The hero checks the neighbor's social media profile and starts to suspect him. He orders another camera and stays awake on the sofa until morning. The next morning, he calls his sister and asks if she can come over. In the evening, the hero visits his sister's house. His sister notices that the hero seems upset. The hero explains that ever since he shifted to the new house, he hasn't been able to sleep peacefully. Since it's his first time staying alone, it's been a bit tough for him, but his sister motivates him by saying that things will get better in a few days. The hero isn't able to openly share everything that's happening, but he understands that he is walking in his sleep. However, he doesn't know why he is having these bad dreams, and these dreams feel very real to him. These things never happened when he lived with his parents, he laments. His sister asks if he's thought about consulting a therapist. The hero hadn't considered it before, but now thinks it might be a good idea. They order pizza and watch TV together, which helps the hero relax. His sister tells him to come over anytime. The hero then receives a notification on his phone indicating motion detected at the front door. He checks the camera recording and sees that a delivery man has left a parcel. That night, the hero sleeps on the sofa at his sister's place. In the middle of the night, the hero dreams again of the hooded figure knocking on the door. He feels terrified and breathes heavily as he wakes up. His sister is standing nearby, having seen how scared he looked while dreaming. The hero tells her he had another nightmare. It's now 12:10 a.m., and the hero receives another notification of motion detected at the front door. He checks the camera recording and sees the neighbor standing there. Telling his sister he needs to go, the hero heads back to his house, retrieves his gun from a box, removes all the bullets, and takes the empty gun to the neighbor's house. When the neighbor opens the door, the hero goes inside and shows him the gun, asking what the neighbor was doing at his house. The neighbor tells him to put the gun away, explaining that he came to check on the hero because he didn't see his car and wanted to make sure everything was okay. He checked the door to see if it was locked. The hero is reluctant to believe the neighbor, suspecting him of disturbing him at night all this time. The neighbor insists that the hero is imagining things because he's sleepwalking. Upset, the hero aims the gun at the neighbor, who then hits the hero and takes the gun, realizing it's empty. Understanding that the hero is very disturbed, the neighbor refuses to give the gun back and suggests the hero see a psychiatrist, advising him to stay away from his house until then. The hero leaves, feeling confused and upset about everything happening around him. He returns home and is shocked to find that the camera outside the front door is missing. Checking the back door, he sees that the camera fixed there is also gone. Confused about whether this is a dream or reality, he calls the neighbor, but the call goes to voicemail. The hero is certain that the neighbor took all the cameras and pleads for help, but the neighbor doesn't respond, as he doesn't believe the hero. Meanwhile, a hooded stranger listens to the hero's conversation from a hiding spot, and we finally see his face. The cameras the stranger took are lying nearby. Despite his sleepwalking, it's clear that a stranger has been entering the house. In the next scene, the hero opens the parcel that arrived and takes out a new camera. He sets it up in the hall to cover the front door and falls asleep on the sofa. The next morning, he immediately looks for a doctor. When the neighbor sees the hero, he turns away. The patrol police have left another parking ticket on the hero's car. With all the issues piling up, the hero goes to see the doctor first. He explains that he hasn't been sleeping well, frequently having bad dreams, and sleepwalking. The doctor explains that this condition is called sleep paralysis and is caused by an irregular sleeping schedule. The hero mentions that he recently moved to a new house and is living alone for the first time. The doctor assures him that things will get better once he's settled in. The hero leaves and checks the parking ticket, which states that parking is prohibited from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Knowing the police make rounds at that time, the hero deliberately parks his car on the road. At 2 a.m., he sets an alarm to wake up and goes outside. He waits by the front door but falls asleep there. He hears the door opening and closing sounds inside the house and sees the hooded stranger entering. This time it's not a dream but reality, though the hero thinks it's a dream and closes his eyes in fear. The stranger looks at the hero and leaves. A while later, the hero wakes up to see a police car parked outside. As usual, the police officer places a parking ticket on his car. The hero quickly runs to the officer and complains about the nightly break-ins. He asks if the officer saw anyone suspicious during their rounds. The officer remembers the hero firing a gun that night and asks if it was him. The hero lies and denies it, saying he didn't see anyone suspicious or any break-ins. The officer advises the hero not to park his car on the road anymore. The hero thanks the officer and leaves. The next morning, the hero calls Nancy. He asks if she gave the house key to anyone, as their previous conversation was abruptly cut off. Nancy responds that she didn't keep any spare key or give it to anyone. Nancy then asks about the house, and the hero says it was nothing, just bad dreams. Following this, the hero goes to the neighbor's house and apologizes to both the neighbor and his wife. He regrets thinking ill of the neighbor and confronting him with a gun, feeling bad for suspecting someone who was only trying to help. The hero tells them he plans to leave and go back to his parents' house as the events have mentally disturbed him. He feels he is not ready to live alone. The neighbor advises him to think carefully about the decision to vacate. The hero's gun is still with the neighbor, but he leaves without taking it back and bids them goodbye. Returning home, the hero packs his things and calls his sister, informing her of his decision to vacate the house. His sister is shocked, as it's only been a week since he moved in. She doesn't understand why he's leaving so soon, but the hero explains he isn't mentally strong enough. His sister advises him to adapt to the challenges, but the hero is firm in his decision. While talking on the phone, the hero notices a small piece of cotton on the floor and wonders how it got there. He checks the footage recorded by the new camera from the previous night and sees the stranger coming in when he was sitting at the front door with his eyes closed. This makes the hero realize that it wasn't a dream but reality. The stranger got caught on the new camera without realizing it had been installed. The hero now understands where the stranger had been hiding. He looks at the ceiling near the bathroom and pulls the cord, opening a door with attached steps leading to a small storage room called an attic. This is the first time the hero discovers the attic in the house. The earlier footage showing light near the bathroom now makes sense, revealing the stranger had been living there all along. Realizing this, the hero drops his phone and runs outside in a panic, heading straight to the neighbor, telling him about the person living in the attic and asking for his gun. The neighbor finds it hard to believe but suggests calling the police if someone is indeed in the attic. The hero pushes the neighbor aside, grabs the gun, and rushes back home. Meanwhile, the stranger descends from the attic, taking the hero's phone and the newly installed camera. The cutter that went missing from the drawer is with the stranger, who had been using the house and staying in the attic all along. Nancy, the previous tenant, had also sensed something evil and left the house in fear. In the climax, the hero returns home with the gun, pulls the cord from the ceiling, climbs the steps, and goes into the attic. The attic smells terrible, and there are pillows and blankets left by the stranger, who has been living among heaps of trash. Confirming the stranger isn't there, the hero descends the steps. The stranger appears inside the house. The hero shows the gun, making the stranger raise his hands in fear. The stranger asks to at least use the bathroom to freshen up, but the hero refuses. When the stranger asks for something to eat, saying he is very hungry, the hero warns him not to come closer or he will shoot. As the stranger approaches, the hero pulls the trigger, but there are no bullets in the gun. Gaining courage, the stranger advances with the cutter, saying it's just a dream and not to be afraid. Just then, seeing a police car outside, the stranger tries to escape through the back door. The hero chases him and tackles him to the ground. The stranger tries to stab the hero with the cutter, but the police arrive in time to arrest the stranger. At the police station, the hero and the neighbor are present, and the police recover the hero's phone from the stranger. The evidence of the stranger living in the attic is on the phone. The neighbor apologizes for not believing the hero, who replies that he himself had doubted his own sanity. The neighbor mentions that the investigation will reveal the stranger's identity, where he came from, and how long he had been in the attic. The hero expresses his intention to finally get some peaceful sleep in his bed and decides not to vacate the house now that the issue is resolved. He calls his sister to inform her of everything that happened, and she comes to pick him up. Back home, the hero tries to sleep but can't. Deciding to unpack his things instead, he realizes he doesn't have the cutter. His sister hands him a car key to open the boxes, and they begin unpacking together. The story concludes here.